Learning objective number 5, construct a trial balance. The trial balance is simply a listing of all the accounts with their balances. So it's like a summary page, because if you think about it, your ledger has all of these pages. Each page is dedicated to an account. And if you have a ton of transactions, then it may be more than just one page. It could go on a number of pages, right? Especially back in the old day when we used to use ledger cards. So we could have one account have a ton of pages, and if you want to get to the final balance, you'd have to scroll through all these pages to get to it. Well, at some point in time, you want to figure out, well, you've got this book and all these ledger cards, and the balances are in these ledger cards. Well, am I in balance? So we're going to use the trial balance. We're going to list all the accounts with their balances. We're going to list them in the order of assets, then liabilities, then stockholders' equity. We're going to show the balances, but we're also going to show the debits and the credits. And so in the end, when we're going to use this as a basis to add up all the debits and compare them to the credits. It is prepared at the end of the period, and it facilitates the preparation for the final financial statements. They are usually prepared at the end of the period, and they facilitate the preparation of the financial statements. So the trial balance example that we have here, Aladdin Travel Incorporated, trial balance, April 30th, 2018. So this is after the end of all those transactions. Now we're just going to look at those balances. And I'll remind you, so let's pull it up. So the T accounts we have here, the cash balance that we figured out was $33,300 debit. Cash, $33,300 debit. Accounts receivable, debit $2,000. Accounts receivable, debit $2,000. So we're just going to take the total for each balance for each account, the balance total of each account, and plot it on this trial balance. Accounts receivable, we did that. Supplies, $3,700. Supplies, the balance is $3,700. Land is $18,000. The balance of land is $18,000. It's a debit. So we're the accounts payable balance is $1,800 credit, 18 credit. So now we're putting it on the credit side. Common stock, $50,000 credit. We don't have to go back and forth. Dividends were $2,100 debit. The credit for service revenue of 10, and then all the debits for the expense. We're going to add up all of the debits and then add up all the credits. The objective of the trial balance is to confirm that debits equal credits. Debits equal credits. That's what we're trying to do with the trial balance. All right, as we get better and better at this, we can use this to analyze specific accounts. If we have part of the information, just a piece of the information, or let's say, it's just like when you have three numbers, and if you're adding or subtracting, if one of them is missing, you can figure out what that amount is just by deductive reasoning, right? Well, the same thing holds true for analyzing accounts. So let's suppose Aladdin's began May with a cash of $1,000, and during May, Aladdin's received cash of $8,000 and ended the month with a cash balance of $3,000. So the question is can we figure out how much Aladdin paid? And the answer is, yeah, we've got everything but that, but we can back into that dollar amount. We can use what we have and then understand how it works so that we can use deductive reasoning to see exactly how much money went out. So cash was $1,000. That's what we started off with. It told us $1,000. It also told us that we received cash, so we know we can increase. An increase to cash is a debit, so there's a debit increase. Then they told us that the ending cash balance was $3,000. Well, if nothing had happened, it's 1 plus 8 is 9. 1 plus 8 is 9,000. So if nothing else happened, our balance should be 9,000. except it tells us that the ending balance was actually 3,000. So if you had 9 and you ended up with 3, how much did you pay out? Well, deductive reasoning tells you paid out 6. Because 1 plus 8 is 9, minus 6 gives you the 3. Now you could have used the formula here, so if you have to memorize these formulas, beginning plus cash receipts minus ending balance, that's going to be your X. X is the amount that is missing, that's the cash payments. So 1,000 plus 8,000 minus 3,000 gives you 6,000. 6,000 is the amount paid out. Accounts receivable, you can compute either sales on account or cash collections on account by analyzing the accounts receivable account using assumed amounts. Same logic here. We have a beginning balance of 6,000, sales on account were 10,000, and we ended up with a balance of 5,000. So how much collections did we receive? That the collection would be a credit to the accounts receivable. If we don't know what that is, we can back into it. So 6,000 debit plus 10 gives us 16. Well, we had to reduce or credit this balance by some amount in order to end up with 5,000. Well, 16 and we ended up with 5. 16 and we ended up with 5. That must mean we paid 11,000, because 6 plus 10 is 16 minus 11 gives us 5. We can use this formula, deductive reasoning, to then solve for the unknown variable, which is $11,000. Same with accounts payable. Beginning balance was 9. Purchases on account were $6,000. So you would expect this balance, if nothing else ever happened, to be 15. Except it only ended up being 11. So what did that mean? 4,000 had to have been paid. Use this formula to solve if you are unclear as to what is occurring. Okay, just like you can imagine, there can be errors. And so correcting accounting errors, how do we do that? First, compute the difference between debits and credits in the trial balance. You're going to be searching for missing accounts. You can divide the out of balance amount by 2, and if you notice that it comes up, whatever number you come up with, it may be that you ended up putting a debit into a debit when it should have been a credit, and if you can divide it by 2, you might be able to find it pretty easy. And then another way you could do is divide the out of balance by 9. If it's evenly divisible by 9, then it's likely what we call a transposition error. A transposition error means instead of entering 27, you entered 72. You transpose the numbers. Let's say it's 32 and 23. 32 and 23. Let's say you transpose those numbers. Well, if you try to figure out your debits and credits and you're off by 9, that's what you're going to be. The 23 and the 32 is going to show you that you're off. You know it's likely a transposition error because it was divisible by 9. Okay, when you're creating your books, you'll also start off with what we refer to as a chart of accounts. It's very common that assets are given 1,000 or 100, or the series begins with 1. So hundreds, it'd be 100 if you're in the hundreds. It could be thousands, it could be 10,000s, but usually your assets begin with the series that begin with 1s. Liabilities typically start with 2, so in this case it's 201, 231, there's 200s. But if you're using 4 digits, it would be 2,000s. If it's 5 digits, it would be 20,000. Stockholders' equity are usually in 3s, revenues are typically in 4s, and expenses are in 5s. And 6s too, depending on the type of expenses you have. All right. This chart gives you kind of a normal balance of what you would expect for these specific accounts. The definition of a debit is the left side of the equation. The normal balance of an asset is a debit. Liabilities is credit. Stockholders' equity is credit. Common stock is credit. Retained earnings is credit. Now, dividends and expenses are both on the right side of the equation, but remember what they do. They decrease retained earnings, or they decrease equity. So therefore, they carry debit balances. Revenues carry a credit balance. Okay, and the last slide is going to show you some decision guidelines that you can use while you're actually trying to analyze transactions, book the journal entries, and determine whether they're debits or credits. Okay, that concludes. That will conclude chapter 2. Good luck, and I will be available online if you have questions.